Unbelievable. How blind could I have been? Of all the people to trust, I chose them. My name is Alyssa, and this isn't just a story about losing a family, it's about discovering the knife you never saw coming. What happened over one rainy weekend shattered everything I thought I knew, and set me free in a way I never expected. The weekend had been a whirlwind. Hugs, laughter, clinking glasses, endless conversations that spilled late into the night. After 2 days back at my mom's house, the kind of family gathering that leaves your heart full but your body drained, I finally returned to my little apartment in Seattle. I dropped my overnight bag by the door, kicked off my sneakers, and leaned against the wall, just breathing. Home. Quiet, familiar, mine. I moved through the apartment almost on autopilot, tossing my keys into the dish by the counter, flipping on the lights. Everything was exactly as I had left it. The stack of unread books on the coffee table, the wilted basil plant near the window that begged for watering, the comforting hum of my old refrigerator. I let out a soft sigh, a strange mix of relief and exhaustion twisted inside me, the kind you only feel after surviving a battlefield of small talk and expectations masked as family love. I wandered into the kitchen and started absent-mindedly cleaning up the few dishes left in the sink. My mind replayed bits of the weekend. Amanda chasing Haley around the yard, Mom fussing over the roast, Dad snoring in the recliner before dessert was even served. They were normal memories, weren't they? Happy ones. So why did they leave a small, nagging ache behind? Maybe I was just tired. I pulled my phone from my pocket, intending to transfer some money for my electric bill before I forgot again. A few taps opened my banking app. I blinked at the screen, the numbers swimming in and out of focus. 83.52. I stared at it. Blinked again. No. That couldn't be right. Just 2 days ago I had over $9,000 in that account. I knew because I had checked before leaving for the weekend. Double-checking bills was practically muscle memory by now. My stomach tightened sharply. I refreshed the app, heart thudding painfully against my ribs. Still 83.52. I checked again and again. Still. My legs gave out before I realized what I was doing, and I found myself slumped against the kitchen cabinet, clutching my phone like a lifeline. What the hell is happening? I whispered aloud to no one. Was it a glitch? Had my account been hacked? Had I somehow spent it without noticing? No, impossible. Panic clawed at the edges of my mind. I needed answers. Now, with trembling hands, I called the bank. The on-hold music felt like it lasted hours, though the screen said only 3 minutes had passed. Finally, a voice came on, calm, professional. Thank you for verifying your security questions, Ms. Grant. I can see several transactions here over the past 48 hours. All were completed from a device previously logged in, same IP address registered to a personal computer. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. Same IP address? A personal computer? Can you tell me where that device is located? I asked, voice tight. The representative hesitated. I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can only confirm that it matches a device recently used from your login history. I barely remembered ending the call. My body moved before my mind could catch up. Grabbing my keys, throwing on a jacket, slamming the door behind me. I drove, barely aware of the rain misting against my windshield, the traffic lights bleeding red and green against the glass. One thought echoed, louder than the tires against the wet road. I have to go back. The drive back to my mother's house felt endless, though I barely remembered the turns I took. My mind raced faster than the car, tripping over itself with 1,000 questions. Could it really have been someone from the family? No, that wasn't possible. Was it? The porch light was still on when I pulled into the driveway, casting a soft yellow glow over the familiar cracks in the sidewalk, the worn welcome mat. Everything looked the same as when I left. Warm, safe, like nothing had gone wrong. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. Don't jump to conclusions, ask first. Listen. Maybe there's an explanation. I stepped out into the cool night air, my shoes crunching over gravel. As I reached the front door, I could hear the faint hum of the TV inside, the soft clinking of glasses. Laughter. I paused, swallowing the lump forming in my throat. Why does everything sound so normal when my whole world just cracked open? I opened the door. It wasn't locked. It never was. The living room was just as I had left it, Amanda curled up on the couch, legs tucked beneath her, swirling a glass of red wine lazily. Nathan lounging in Dad's old recliner, a soda can perched precariously on the armrest. Mom sat quietly in the corner, knitting needles flashing in a steady rhythm like she hadn't missed a beat since Sunday dinner. The normalcy of it all made my skin prickle. Amanda looked up first, her smile easy, careless. "You're back already?" I tried to steady my voice, tried to sound casual, but the words scraped out hoarse and uneven. "I just checked my bank account." Her brows lifted slightly, an almost amused tilt to her head. "Oh?" Nathan snorted under his breath, cracking open another soda with a hiss that felt like an insult. "I had over $9,000 2 days ago," I said, my throat tightening. "Now there's $83 left." Amanda shrugged, unbothered. "You must have left it open on Mom's computer." I froze, the room tilting slightly around me. "What do you mean, left it open?" Nathan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, grinning like this was some kind of inside joke. "Oh, come on, Alyssa. Don't look so shocked. We needed that money more than you did." The words hit harder than any slap could have. I stared at him, then at Amanda, then at Mom. Mom didn't even look up from her knitting. "You... what?" I whispered. Amanda rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. "You're fine, you have no kids, no debt. You live alone, don't be so selfish." My mouth opened but no sound came out. I turned, desperate, to my mother, the woman who used to cradle me through nightmares, who used to pack my school lunches with little heart-shaped notes. "Mom, did you know?" Her hands paused for a moment over her yarn, then resumed, steady and measured. "You're always so sensitive, sweetheart," she murmured. "You have more. What's wrong with helping a little?" Something cracked inside me, a thin line splitting deep through my chest. Was I crazy for thinking this was wrong? Was I overreacting like they said? My father didn't even look up from his phone. His voice, detached, drifted across the room. "Don't use harsh words. It's family business." Family business. That's what they called it. Amanda twirled her wineglass between her fingers, smirking. "Honestly, you should be grateful you could help." I felt the heat rise behind my eyes, my hands clenching into fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. I looked at all of them, the people who were supposed to protect me, to stand by me, and realized something devastatingly simple. They didn't see it as stealing, they saw it as expected. My life, my savings, my sacrifices, just another resource for them to tap into whenever they pleased. No apology, no shame, just entitlement wrapped up in the word family. I backed toward the door, feeling like the ground itself was slipping out from under me. No one moved to stop me. Amanda simply raised her glass in a mock toast. "Don't forget Sunday dinner," Mom called after me, her voice sweet, oblivious. Hand trembling, I reached for the doorknob. For a second, I almost left without saying a word. Almost. But something rooted me there, something sharp and alive that refused to be swallowed down anymore. I turned back one last time, my voice low but steady. "If you think I'm just going to let this go, wait and see what happens next." Amanda giggled, the sound sharp and grating. "Oh please, you're being so theatrical, Alyssa." I didn't answer, I didn't need to. Outside, the rain had started again. Soft, cold, relentless, and somewhere inside me another storm had just begun to rise. The rain blurred the city lights into soft smudges as I drove, but inside my car everything felt sharp. Every breath, every beat of my heart, every unfinished word burning on my tongue. I didn't go straight home. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too badly to even hold the steering wheel steady. Instead, I pulled into the first empty parking lot I saw. Green Lake Park, the place where I used to jog on quiet Saturday mornings, thinking fresh air and sunlight could fix anything. I killed the engine. Silence crashed over me like a wave. I sat there, staring at the dashboard, my mind whirling. They stole from me. They stole from me. Not strangers, not thieves hiding behind ski masks. Family. The word tasted bitter on my tongue. I unlocked my phone again, thumb hovering over the banking app like maybe, just maybe, this time it would show something different. It didn't. $83.52, mocking me with its precision. A hollow laugh escaped my throat, ugly and raw. How long had this been building? How many times had I looked the other way because it's just a little help? How many times had I swallowed my hurt because that's what family does? I closed my eyes, flashes of memories punching through the darkness behind my eyelids. Amanda's voice 3 years ago. "Can you spot me? just this once. You know I'd do it for you. They didn't see it as stealing, they saw it as expected. My life, my savings, my sacrifices, just another resource for them to tap into whenever they pleased. No apology, no shame, just entitlement wrapped up in the word family. I backed toward the door, feeling like the ground itself was slipping out from under me. No one moved to stop me. Amanda simply raised her glass in a mock toast. "Don't forget Sunday dinner," Mom called after me, her voice sweet, oblivious. Hand trembling, I reached for the doorknob. For a second, I almost left without saying a word. Almost. But something rooted me there, something sharp and alive that refused to be swallowed down anymore. I turned back one last time, my voice low but steady. "If you think I'm just going to let this go, wait and see what happens next." Amanda giggled, the sound sharp and grating. "Oh, please, you're being so theatrical, Alyssa." I didn't answer, I didn't need to. Outside, the rain had started again. Soft, cold, relentless. And somewhere inside me another storm had just begun to rise. The rain blurred the city lights into soft smudges as I drove, but inside my car everything felt sharp, every breath, every beat of my heart, every unfinished word burning on my tongue. I didn't go straight home. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too badly to even hold the steering wheel steady. Instead, I pulled into the first empty parking lot I saw. Green Lake Park. The place where I used to jog on quiet Saturday mornings thinking fresh air and sunlight could fix anything. I killed the engine. Silence crashed over me like a wave. I sat there staring at the dashboard, my mind whirling. They stole from me. They stole from me. Not strangers. Not thieves hiding behind ski masks. Family, the word tasted bitter on my tongue. I unlocked my phone again, thumb hovering over the banking app like maybe, just maybe, this time it would show something different. It didn't. $83.52, mocking me with its precision. A hollow laugh escaped my throat, ugly and raw. How long had this been building? How many times had I looked the other way because it's just a little help? How many times had I swallowed my hurt because that's what family does? I closed my eyes, flashes of memories punching through the darkness behind my eyelids. Amanda's voice 3 years ago. "Can you spot me? Just this once. You know I'd do it for you." Nathan's text at 2 a.m. "Bro, emergency, can you wire $500? I'll pay you back Friday, swear." Mom's sweet voice on the phone. "You're the strong one, Alyssa. You're the lucky one." Lucky. Strong. Selfish. When I finally said no, I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel, breathing through the ache in my chest. Was it my fault? Had I made it too easy? The thought hit harder than anything else. Maybe they didn't change. Maybe I just finally opened my eyes. By the time the rain eased, my decision had already been made. I drove home. Every turn a silent vow. In my apartment, I pulled out an old accordion file from the back of my closet. The one where I kept important stuff. Receipts, contracts, old medical bills, random scraps of proof that once upon a time I had helped without question. I set it on the kitchen table, pulled out my laptop, opened a fresh spreadsheet. I began to build it, row by row. Every dollar, every late-night wire transfer, every favor unreturned. Green for medical emergencies, yellow for living expenses, red for all the gifts and emergencies that never were. Like the $1,350 Nathan spent on a gaming console the same month I skipped a vacation because I was short on rent. I wasn't doing this to ask for anything back. I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. I was doing this for me. So I would never, ever forget again. By midnight, my apartment was dark except for the cold glow of the screen, the spreadsheet filling up like a map of every boundary I'd let them cross. My phone buzzed, a text from Amanda. "You're seriously mad about this? Don't be so dramatic, you know you'll bounce back." I stared at it. I didn't reply. A second text, Nathan this time. "We needed it more than you. Don't make a scene. It's just money. Just money." I laughed again, low, broken, exhausted. No apology, no regret. I thought about every skipped meal, every missed opportunity, every sleepless night spent worrying about someone else's rent or medical bill while my own dreams gathered dust. I thought about how many times I had silenced myself just to keep the peace. No more. I clicked save on the file. Tomorrow, I would take the next step. Tomorrow, I would stop being the family's safety net. I would stop apologizing for drawing a line. Tomorrow, the real storm would begin. The morning came gray and heavy, like the sky itself was holding its breath. I barely slept. I didn't need to. By 8 a.m., I was already downtown, walking into the Financial Crimes Division with a folder tucked under my arm. Receipts, bank statements, screenshots, copies of every silent sacrifice I had made without complaint. I was no longer trembling. I was no longer second-guessing. The receptionist's smile was polite but cautious when I explained why I was there. Financial exploitation, she repeated, eyebrows raised. Yes, I said, steady. By my own family. A few minutes later, I was sitting across from an officer named Harper. She looked younger than me, but her eyes were sharp and kind in a way that somehow steadied my racing heart. I slid the folder across the table. This is everything, I said. Every payment, every unauthorized withdrawal, the full timeline. She flipped through it carefully, nodding as she read. You've done half our job already, she murmured, a small smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. I forced a laugh, but it came out brittle. Miss Grant, she said after a moment, based on this information, we have sufficient grounds to initiate an investigation into financial fraud and unauthorized access to personal data. I exhaled slowly, as if releasing years of invisible weight. Are you willing to cooperate fully if this escalates? I didn't even hesitate. Yes, I said. I'm ready. That afternoon, while the rest of Seattle buzzed around me like any other Tuesday, my family's world began to crack open. The first sign came during a Zoom call with my manager. A call from an unknown number lit up my screen. I muted my microphone and stepped out onto the balcony to answer. Ms. Grant, Harper said, her voice crisp. The investigative unit is at the residence now. We'll be seizing any devices suspected of unauthorized access. My heart pounded. Not with fear? With something sharper, clearer, relief. The phone calls from home started within the hour. Mom, Amanda, Nathan, I didn't pick up. A stream of texts followed, desperate, panicked. Call me back, sweetheart. What are you doing? This is family. You're ruining everything over some stupid money. I didn't answer. I sat by the window, the twilight softening the edges of the city, and watched the messages pile up like broken promises. Later that night, a neighbor sent me a photo. 3 officials in jackets marked Financial Crimes Unit standing on my parents' front porch. Their faces were unreadable, unlike mine. By the next morning, it was no longer just desperate calls, it was consequences. Amanda's text came first. My bank account's frozen. I can't pay Haley's tuition. Are you happy now? The bitterness dripped from every word. Still no apology. Still no remorse. Nathan's email came next, from a new address, since his old accounts were likely under investigation. Please, Alyssa, I've been suspended from work. They're investigating my accounts. I can't lose everything over one mistake. Please say something to help me. One mistake. As if stealing nearly $10,000 from me. From the sister who never asked for anything in return. Could be brushed away with a shrug and a desperate plea. The final blow came late in the afternoon. Dad. The man who barely spoke unless it was about weather or sports. His message was blunt. The bank sent a foreclosure warning. We lose the house in 30 days if we can't pay. Hope you're proud. No ownership, no guilt, just a poisoned arrow aimed at my heart. I read it once, twice, and then I closed the messages, locked my phone, and placed it face down on the coffee table. Standing by the window, I watched the last of the daylight disappear behind the buildings. There was a time when I would have crumbled at these messages. Run back. Begged for forgiveness for daring to defend myself, but not anymore. Now I understood something crystal clear. They were never going to see me as anything but a resource. They only missed the convenience I represented, not the person I was. I thought about calling Harper, about checking the case status, but instead, I stayed still, letting the silence wrap around me like armor. This wasn't revenge, it wasn't spite, it was justice, it was survival. The following days blurred together like a long gray smear across my memory. Voicemails piled up, texts poured in, some were angry, some were pleading, some were so manipulative it made my stomach twist. Alyssa, you're blowing this out of proportion, it's just a misunderstanding, family sticks together. Mom's not eating, she's so stressed, you're breaking her heart. If we lose the house, it'll be your fault. Their voices clawed through the speaker like ghosts trying to drag me back into the past. And for a brief moment, a very real, very raw guilt flickered inside me. Was I heartless? Was I punishing them too harshly? Was this really what I wanted? I sat on the floor of my apartment one evening, back pressed against the couch, staring at the city lights bleeding through the rain-speckled window. Their accusations gnawed at me. But somewhere deeper, buried beneath years of learned obedience, another voice rose up, stronger, steadier. No, you didn't do this. They did. They crossed the line, they emptied your account, they violated your trust, and when you stood up, they blamed you for bleeding. On Thursday evening, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. My heart jumped. For a split second, fear gripped me. Through the peephole, I saw her. Amanda. She looked thinner than usual, rain soaking her hair, her arms crossed tightly across her chest. For a long moment I just stood there, forehead against the door. Breathing. Finally I unlocked it. She didn't wait for an invitation. "You're really gonna do this?" She snapped the second the door opened, pushing past me into the living room. I closed the door quietly behind her. Turned to face her. Amanda was pacing, hands flying, her voice rising higher and higher, sharp with panic and fury. "They froze my accounts, Alyssa. Haley's school called today. They're threatening to drop her because I missed tuition." She turned on me, eyes flashing. "Are you happy now? You ruined everything over some stupid money." Something inside me snapped, not with rage but with a clear, cold finality. I stepped closer, my voice low even. "I didn't ruin anything, Amanda. You did. You made choices, you crossed lines. You decided that I was just a wallet with a pulse." Her lip curled, eyes shining with unshed tears. "We're family, Alyssa. We're supposed to help each other." I laughed. Not a cruel laugh, but a broken, exhausted one. "Help? Is that what you call it? Stealing from me? Guilt-tripping me? Watching me scrape by so you could live easier? That's not family, Amanda. That's exploitation." She stared at me, breathing hard. "You think you're some hero now?" She spat. "You think you're better than us?" "No," I said simply. "I think I finally realized my worth." She shook her head, tears spilling over now. For a split second, she looked less furious and more lost. "You abandoned us," she whispered. "No," I said, voice steady as stone. "I stopped abandoning myself." Amanda left that night, slamming the door so hard, the picture frames rattled on the walls. She didn't say goodbye, I didn't chase after her. For the first time I didn't apologize for choosing myself. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a new voicemail from my mother. Her voice was soft, fragile. "Alyssa, please, come home. We can fix this. You don't have to do this. We're family." I listened to it twice, maybe 3 times, and then I hit delete. Because I finally understood. Family isn't supposed to feel like drowning, and loving yourself isn't betrayal, it's survival. The day after Amanda stormed out, the rain finally stopped. For the first time in weeks, the clouds peeled back like slow-moving curtains, revealing a pale blue sky underneath. It was a small thing, but to me it felt monumental. I sat by my window, nursing a cup of coffee gone cold long ago, and stared out at the world with new eyes. No frantic messages lighting up my phone, no breathless guilt weighing down my chest, just quiet, stillness, freedom. Later that afternoon, I opened my laptop and filed for an extended leave of absence from work. Not because I was crumbling, but because for once, I wanted to heal on my own terms. Not patchwork healing squeezed between overtime hours and late-night phone calls begging for more money. Real healing. I booked a rental car, no round-trip ticket, no explanations, just me, a map, and the wide-open road. 2 mornings later, under a soft gray sky, I packed my life into neat little boxes. Clothes, books, my grandmother's old teacup I refused to leave behind, my journal, still half full of words I hadn't yet dared to write. I left my apartment key on the counter, pulled the door closed behind me, didn't look back. The drive out of Seattle was surreal. Every street corner, every coffee shop window, every traffic light felt like a chapter closing. Like I was crossing a bridge I could never uncross. Was I scared? A little. Was I sad? Maybe. But mostly, I was something else entirely. Free. I didn't have a final destination in mind. I just knew I needed somewhere new, somewhere untainted by old memories. Boulder, Colorado called to me like a whisper on the wind. Years ago, during a business trip, I had wandered through its downtown streets. Tiny coffee shops tucked between bookstores, mountains rising like guardians in the distance. Back then it had felt like a fantasy. Now it felt like salvation. When I arrived, it was just past dusk. The mountains loomed dark against the fading light, and the air was so clean it almost made my chest ache. I found a small studio apartment, White walls, wide windows, no shared walls with neighbors who might overhear the late-night unraveling of my old life. I didn't buy much, just the basics. A bed, a desk, a chair by the window where I could sit and watch the sunrise without feeling like I owed anyone anything. The first night, I slept with the windows cracked open. The cool mountain air curled around me like a promise. You're safe now. In the weeks that followed, something incredible happened. My energy, the quiet flame I thought they had smothered for good, began to flicker back to life. I slept through the night. I laughed, real, bubbling laughter, at a silly joke from a barista. I ate slow, hearty meals I cooked myself, not hurried takeout eaten in the car between obligations. At work, my mind was sharper. My ideas were bolder. Julian, my boss, called one afternoon. "Alyssa, your last project? Brilliant. Have you ever considered taking over the regional coordinator position? West Coast leadership, full creative autonomy." I stared at the phone, stunned. A year ago, I would have hesitated, worried about how much stress it might bring, about whether I'd still be available if my family needed me. Now, I smiled. "Yes," I said, "I'm ready." And I meant it. One crisp evening, I sat out on my tiny balcony, wrapped in a knit blanket, sipping tea as the stars blinked alive above the mountains. I opened my journal and wrote, slowly, carefully. I am not the fixer. I am not the wallet. I am not the lifeline for people who never once asked if I was drowning. I am Alyssa. Whole. Unapologetic. Finally mine. The days in Boulder slipped by gently, like river stones polished smooth over time. No demands, no late-night emergencies, no tightrope of guilt pulling at my every move, just quiet mornings filled with sunlight spilling across my floors, lazy afternoons spent wandering through bookstores and hidden trails, evenings with tea cooling in my hand, watching the sky burn orange behind the mountains. Sometimes I caught myself waiting for the next disaster, the next desperate call, the next guilt-laced demand. But it didn't come. The silence wasn't empty. It was peaceful. It was mine. I joined a Saturday pottery class, something I'd always wanted to try but never had time for. On the first day, as I shaped a lump of clay between my hands, I felt it. The unfamiliar weight of possibility. One Thursday evening my phone buzzed, not with a desperate plea, but with an email. From a name I barely remembered, Melanie Carter, Amanda's cousin-in-law. A quiet girl from a few family gatherings, always tucked into the corners, overlooked. Curious, I opened it. "You probably don't remember me well. I'm Melanie, Aunt Grace's daughter." I stayed silent for years, thinking it wasn't my place to say anything, but after hearing what you did, how you stood up, how you walked away, I had to write. I was trapped too. Always the lucky one, expected to give and give until I had nothing left. Working 3 jobs, sending money home, erasing myself to be the good daughter. Watching you say no showed me something I didn't know was possible. It showed me that setting boundaries isn't cruelty. It's courage. Thank you, Alyssa. You lit a path I didn't know existed. I read her words over and over, my hands trembling slightly. I wasn't alone. I had never really been alone. There were others, countless others, carrying invisible burdens, silencing their own needs, mistaking sacrifice for love. And maybe, just maybe, by saving myself, I had cracked a door open for someone else too. That weekend, as autumn rolled deeper into Boulder, I found myself back at the coffee shop I had visited years ago during that long-forgotten work trip. The same soft jazz spilled from the speakers. The same golden lights flickered above the counter. The owner smiled warmly as he handed me my coffee. "You've been here before, haven't you?" he said. "You're the one who asked about the jazz record." I laughed, surprised he remembered. "That was me," I said, "and now I live here." He smiled knowingly, wiping down the counter. "This town has a way of healing people who need it most." I stepped outside with my coffee, standing under a maple tree whose leaves were blazing in reds and golds. The breeze caught them, sending a few swirling gently across the sidewalk. For a long moment, I just stood there. Not rushing to be anywhere, not fixing anything for anyone. Just breathing, just being. That night, curled up in bed, I opened my journal and wrote. I spent my whole life guarding a door for people who only wanted what was inside. Not to know me, not to love me, just to take. Now, I have locked that door. And the only people who are welcome are the ones who knock, who see me, who stay because they choose me, not because they need something. And maybe for the first time I was beginning to choose myself too. The seasons turned quietly in Boulder, and with them, so did I. There were no grand epiphanies, no cinematic moments of closure, just small, steady choices that built a life I no longer had to escape from. Some days the past whispered, a song on the radio, the smell of rain, a voicemail from an unknown number I never bothered to open, but it didn't haunt me anymore. It was just a part of the landscape now, a distant landmark on a road I had long since left behind. I learned to savor small joys. The first sip of coffee in the morning, hot and rich and mine. The satisfying collapse of clean sheets after a long day. The laughter of strangers drifting through an open cafe door. The ache in my muscles after a hike that stretched longer than I planned because the view was too beautiful to leave. I filled my apartment with pieces of the new life I was building. A worn leather journal full of messy dreams. Photos from solo road trips. Snapshots of mountains, rivers, vast open skies. A pottery mug I made myself, lopsided but sturdy. Things that didn't owe anyone anything. Things that were mine simply because I chose them. That weekend, as autumn rolled deeper into Boulder, I found myself back at the coffee shop I had visited years ago during that long-forgotten work trip. The same soft jazz spilled from the speakers. The same golden lights flickered above the counter. The owner smiled warmly as he handed me my coffee. "You've been here before, haven't you?" he said. "You're the one who asked about the jazz record." I laughed, surprised he remembered. "That was me," I said. "And now I live here." He smiled knowingly, wiping down the counter. "This town has a way of healing people who need it most." I stepped outside with my coffee, standing under a maple tree whose leaves were blazing in reds and golds. The breeze caught them, sending a few swirling gently across the sidewalk. For a long moment, I just stood there. Not rushing to be anywhere, not fixing anything for anyone, just breathing, just being. That night, curled up in bed, I opened my journal and wrote, "I spent my whole life guarding a door for people who only wanted what was inside. Not to know me, not to love me, just to take. Now I have locked that door. And the only people who are welcome are the ones who knock, who see me, who stay because they choose me, not because they need something. And maybe for the first time, I was beginning to choose myself too." The seasons turned quietly in Boulder, and with them, so did I. There were no grand epiphanies, no cinematic moments of closure, just small, steady choices that built a life I no longer had to escape from. Some days the past whispered, a song on the radio, the smell of rain, a voicemail from an unknown number I never bothered to open. But it didn't haunt me anymore. It was just a part of the landscape now, a distant landmark on a road I had long since left behind. I learned to savor small joys, the first sip of coffee in the morning, hot and rich and mine, the satisfying collapse of clean sheets after a long day, the laughter of strangers drifting through an open cafe door, the ache in my muscles after a hike that stretched longer than I planned because the view was too beautiful to leave. I filled my apartment with pieces of the new life I was building, a worn leather journal full of messy dreams, photos from solo road trips, snapshots of mountains, rivers, vast open skies, a pottery mug I made myself, lopsided but sturdy. Things that didn't owe anyone anything, things that were mine, simply because I chose them.